What is going on, people? Welcome to the ASTROLABE. One of these days, we're going to get an afternoon ASTROLABE, but today, we get another evening LABE. It's not going to be a morning LABE. We're definitely not going to go that long, even on the East Coast. Maybe in Europe, but we don't pay attention to what Europeans experience here at the ASTROLABE. This is an American podcast. What's going on, everyone in the chat? Where are my Trumps at? Let me see some Trumps. We're fighting the algorithm by posting eggplants in honor of the Trump's sufferers, those who are suffering through the burden of Trump-related ultramassive penis syndrome. If you or someone you know is struggling to bear the brunt of the burden that is Trump-related ultramassive penis syndrome, then do me a favor and post some eggplants in the chat. There they are. Look at that wall of eggplants. All right. Yeah, ASTROLABE After Dark. Oh, no. It's good to see you guys. Do me a favor and hit the like button and do a little interacting with the channel. We do a little interacting with the channel here to try to feebly combat the algorithmic suppression. I was going to try to get it set up to see if it was possible to stream to Substack, because Substack has been... I saw something that popped up recently about possibly being able to go live on Substack. And so if that's possible, then I'm going to try to connect that. I just didn't get didn't have time to do it today. But that may be a way for those of you. A number of people commented on yesterday's stream and commiserated with Cooper's ad experience. So apparently ads are really disruptive. Which is just, it's so fucking aggravating. Like, I want to be able to just stream somewhere and not have ads. Imagine that. Imagine just wanting to be able to stream and not have ads. So I suppose if you really, really dislike it, if you really want to do something about it, you could go watch the stream on X. You're also streaming on X, and as far as I know, X does not have ads that they input onto the streams. But obviously it's not the... It's not the most ideal user interface. I can sympathize with that. I don't really watch or listen to much on X when I can get away with it, just because it's just not convenient. Frankly, what they need is an X video app. They need to have a separate app, because even as it is now, if you don't get your order of operations right, you can open something up and you can be listening to it, and then you close it and you've got background play. It's all nice and everything. You're going along, and then you get a notification from Twitter. Say, oh, that's interesting. Let me open that notification, and it ends it. And then you have to go back and find it. Where was it? I was listening to this 2-hour podcast that was posted on Twitter and posted on X, and now I'm going back to find it, and I start watching it again, and it didn't save where I was at. So now I've got to try to figure out where this sort of thing must not happen. Please, Elon, I know you're a busy man. I respect all the things that you're doing. But we are begging of you. We need a functional video streaming platform. Us professional video streamers are thirsting, parched in the desert of terrible streaming platforms. And we just need X video. Now, I don't know what you're going to call it. Are you going to call it X video? I suppose maybe there's a large enough reach here. You got enough internet sway that you just retrain all those other algorithms. So you get an inverted problem. All of the naughty boys who are going to for X video type things, they just have to deal with the fact that now their SEO is destroyed. That'd actually be a great thing. Wouldn't that be awesome? Oh, exposure. That's not too bad. Exposure. Elon, hire Ian. He has ideas. Okay. Let's get it rocking and rolling. What are we talking about today? So we got a couple little updates on the signal gate, of course, because we have to call every single scandal or scandal adjacent happening a gate. So it's signal gate, apparently. I've got some more thoughts on that. We got a little update on the story. We're going to talk about the judiciary. We've got foreign-born judges who just keep magically finding their way into the most important cases. We're going to talk about that. We've got Thomas Massie, who is Right? Last couple times I've talked about Massie, we've complained about him. Now we can talk about the Massie's W's. 95% of the stuff Massie says and does is would be categorized as Massie's W's. So I've got a Massie's W story today, a dual loyalty bill, and then we're going to talk about the Europores. The Europores, if we're going to be derogatory, or Euro bros, if we're going to be magnanimous and gracious. They're all wound up. So we're gonna touch on that briefly, and we've got some just absolute W's here at the top. But before we get into all of that, let's just start with some very on brand, very topical slop. Creed plus the Masters. Where are my golf bros at? You got some golf bros out there? We've got Creed plus the Masters. Let's go there! Ah! The European mind truly cannot comprehend this. This is American culture. Creed playing over the Masters. This is my favorite video that's been produced yet this year. This is just peak content. We have summited Content Mountain, and at the top we found a hype video with hire from Creed over Masters footage. Oh my goodness. $5 super chat from See You in the Camp. You can send a super chat if you'd like to support the show that way. Thank you, my friend. He says, has anybody checked on Peter Zeihan? I just imagine him talking to his bathroom mirror saying things that won't happen in the future. Thank you for giving me a fantastic content idea. Hold on. Peter Zeihan talking to himself in the mirror about things that won't happen in the future. My hero. I'm technically subscribed to him, and I think I see his stuff come across every so often, but I strangely haven't found myself in a situation where I'm like, hey, I wonder what Peter Zeihan's opinion is on this. So I haven't actually listened. Politically Catholic typically keeps up with him pretty well. So if he's in the chat, he could weigh in and let us know what Peter Zeihan is thinking. But I could probably figure it out. TC says, call me a traditionalist, but Masters video without the Masters soundtrack is blasphemous. Now, that's fair. That's fair. I can appreciate that perspective. I don't share it, but I can appreciate it. We apparently we have to have a little bit of blasphemy every once in a while. Don't tell my priest I said that. And then here's another one. Got to front load the slop. I'm never gonna look at Chick-fil-A the same ever again.
Okay, so we got the 2 chicken nuggets, and then the number 1 that's going to be $22.50 at the first window.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Or my pleasure. My pleasure. I said my pleasure. I said my pleasure, right? Fuck, dude, you gotta let me in. I said my pleasure. I said my pleasure. You can ask him. I said it. I said it. Oh, yeah. I said it. I said my pleasure. I said it. I said it. I said my pleasure.
So that was 2 chicken nuggets and a number 1. That's gonna be $20.55 if you just pull around to the front window.
What happened to the other guy?
So there was no other guy, but if you just pull up, your food will be ready.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Ian says, take him to Guantanamo. No. We're not taking him to Guantanamo. We're taking him to CCOT. He's going to go see Bukele for his crimes. You know, there's this. You guys should listen to the Inquisition, or not the Inquisition, the Thought Crime Syndicate over on Pete Quinones' show. Go listen to the most recent episode. They talked about El Salvador, and it was a absolutely good one. It was a banger. And one thing, they played a video of this guy touring the Bukele prison system, and it was remarkable. The whole conversation is basically about talking about how our criminal justice system is just completely wrong. It's structurally unsound and has to be completely reimagined. And the Bukele model is about as close to the perfect model that you could get. And there's distinct aspects of it. So if you go to the CCOT, you're gone. You're never coming out again. You are disappearing into the void because you are someone who belongs there. But then there's the other model, which you actually can earn your way out of. And they realize that you can have a prison system, or if you have a prison system, you've got a whole bunch of labor available to do a bunch of really cheap jobs and provide supplies and materials and stuff for the country. And the more the guys, part of the program is like each day that you work takes a day off of your sentence. So if you have a 10-year sentence and then you go work every single day, you work an 8-hour day, go do your job, whatever is assigned to you. There was like making clothes and making desks and growing and harvesting food, like vegetables and such. And each day that you work, you take a day off, so you could wind up having a 5-year sentence. And in the course of that 5 years, you might actually have been able to have like a documented track record of being really productive, and you start learning how to work. And for some people, there's plenty of people who wind up in the prison system because the circumstances of their birth place them on an inevitable trajectory toward that. But they're not hardened criminals. They're just people who don't know how to be productive and functional for this reason or that reason or whatever. And even if they are like, 78 IQ or something, well, the thing a 78 IQ person needs is to have some structure imposed upon them and learn how to operate at a baseline functional level within that structure. So you place them into a controlled environment where they have no choice. They don't have the distractions. They don't have the temptations. They're simply forced to be constructive and learn how to do that, build that muscle memory. So then they can actually transition into continuing that world and gradually add back in more privileges. This is how a prison system, if it's going to exist, you can do two things, and really we kind of need to do both of them. You can massively expand your use of capital punishment, or you can create a functional prison system. But you can't have like neither one. That's like the worst possible combination of scenarios, is to have conservative use of capital punishment and this sprawling, dysfunctional prison system. If you want no prison system, then you're going to have to go to like maximal use of capital punishment, or you're not going to have a society. Anyways, very, very good, conversation. Yeah, Vulpes Persona, that's what I was talking about. Pete Q's most recent Thought Crime Syndicate episode went through a Zoomer documentary visit to a Bukele's factory prison. Okay, let's see what was next. Oh, I got this tweet here from Lucas. Good account to follow. Schizo Freak. He's quote tweeting this video. So there's a guy here who was arrested today arrested yesterday after ramming his mini four-wheeler into a Cybertruck. Look at this. Boop. Little did he know, says Sawyer Merritt, that the Cybertruck has 1.8 millimeter bulletproof stainless steel doors capable of taking some heavy hits. He was charged with 1 count of felony criminal mischief and failure to identify. And Lucas said, the libtards are sending obese minorities on go-karts to suicide bomb Teslas. But they're so overweight, the cuck little go-kart motors can't accelerate them fast enough to do any damage. He had DMV American. Just watch it over and over. Boop. Boof. Boof. There's so many good things happening. It turns out you could just do things. Look at this. Andrew Isker on Tucker Carlson. Andrew and CJ had posted a picture a couple days ago of them driving in the car, and they said something like on the way to to something very important. And this is what it was. I'm just what did I say? Did I post it in here? I can't remember if I commented it here or somewhere else. But I'm just really proud of my good friend Pete Quinones for so graciously keeping Tucker Carlson afloat by just lending his esteemed guests to Tucker. Tucker's finally starting to make it here. He's figured out the corner of the internet that has the interesting ideas. It's us. It's our guys. Our guys are being exposed to Tucker's audience. Anybody who is blackpilling right now goes to Bukele. Bukele needs to open a black pillars wing of his prison system so that we can detox these poor fellows. They just need to send a black team to go get them, kidnap them in the middle of the night, take them down to Bukele, and just give them the cold turkey detox that they need. White pill maximization. I can't wait to listen to this one. I haven't had time to listen to anything today, but this one immediately hit the top of the queue. It is excellent to see. And very smartly, I gotta tip the cap. They are working this game perfectly. I say this with great admiration. With this with them suddenly being exposed to the largest audience, probably the largest audience that they could conceivably be exposed to, particularly from our little corner of the world. They're capitalizing on it. So CJ, he says, I've largely kept publicly separate from my company, not wanting to mix personality with product or political views with business. I think such a world is now behind us. Everything is political. Hiring is political. Building is political. I never even had social media for my company because our products were mostly sold in micro fleets and we didn't need to market to individuals. But as I grow, I want my company to come with me. This is where my boys will work. This is where my friends' boys will work. I want this country to be great. And even if it's only analogous to throwing a pebble in a lake, I want to participate in tidal waves. So he is publicly announcing his company, Sunnyside Off-Road. You can just build things. He says Sunnyside Off-Road was born in Reno, Nevada, and spent the last few years in Northern California. Now we're in Middle Tennessee. And if you're not watching, you want to watch. You want to either watch this part here or go open the link to CJ's tweet on the King Pilled Substack once I get this posted to see the quality of their fabrication here. Historically, we were completely word of mouth with almost no marketing at all. Just a small shop specializing in tow-behind pods for UTVs, etc. Not only is this is fantastic film work. Pictures look great. Fantastic looking product. We realized a few years ago that the best market for us actually wasn't direct to consumers, but microfleet deals to companies and nonprofits. What really set us apart was actually our suspension setup. It was made to be pulled off-road. It could go anywhere, making it ideal not only for overlanders, but also for firefighters, utility workers, and others who needed to stay in hard to reach areas for days at a time. As we settled in Tennessee, we began to really rethink what it might mean to have 100% American-made and manufactured product that hit customers directly again and broaden out, not just stick to fleets. While we don't have millions of dollars of capital backing us, it is cool to see how far we've come in 7 years. We aren't a mover or shaker, but we want to participate in what is happening in American manufacturing and American hiring. This is some sharp equipment. Anyway, we're entering the social media fray for the first time. You can just build things. Overlanding Americans. This gets me hyped. Look at our boys building stuff. Go take over that industry. This is exactly what we need to see right now. We need more guys like CJ and Andrew. He says everything is political, hiring is political, building is political. I imagine there may be some of you who recoil from that idea, where you think like, yucky. No, I want politics out of my life. But here's the thing: you can opt out of politics, but politics isn't going to opt out of you. Even opting out of politics is itself political. And once you get your head around that, I think you can start to reframe your relationship to all of these things. Just be honest about what you're doing. Even if you're opting out of the political process or out of politics, however you would actually, how do you draw the lines around what is political and what isn't? It's kind of arbitrary, ultimately. It's not like, oh, that's political, but that's not political, and this is clearly differentiated. It's kind of an arbitrary. Connect. Well, let's see if we get reconnected. Looking for the Fs to see. Okay, there we go. There's an F, so it got caught up. Now it looks like it's back. I'm going to wait, give you guys a sec to catch up and make sure that it's back. We're back. Okay, good. What was I going to say? Oh, so rejecting the category. I think creating these carve-outs to say, oh, this thing is political, but then these other things aren't. This is kind of part of the fake and gay liberal worldview. Inventing this category of politics when it's really just, I don't know, participating in your community at scale. But no, this is like this special category called politics. That's for it's for experts. It's for the understanders. And it's this thing that you can kind of be a part of or not be a part of, but there's a political class, and they're the ones who really handle all this stuff. And so this politics is just this thing we can put over here, and we can just engineer it and tweak this thing and that thing and the other thing, and then you have your private life. The public-private thing is bullshit. It doesn't exist. I'll talk about this a little bit here when we talk about the Mike Waltz thing. There is this public-private thing. You got to disabuse yourself of this. This is the libertarian mind worm that still sits there clinging to things in the backs of our minds. There is no such thing as the public-private distinction. It's fake and gay. And once you realize that, then the idea that there's this certain thing that's set aside that's called politics, that is a different category from business or family or industry or commerce, or all of these things are all political. Choosing to participate in them is a political statement under those terms. Choosing not to participate in them is a political statement under those terms. So it's not like you're not opting out of politics. You're just choosing how you're going to be politically. CJ is ahead of the curve, as usual. One of our guys is ahead of the curve. So you can engage in the political process by building a business. You engage in the political process by having children. You engage in the political process by cleaning up your neighborhood or mentoring some younger guy. You're engaging in the political process when you do that. All right, let's keep this going. You know what's great? We've got these two guys, they go on Tucker Carlson's show. Get exposed to one of the largest audiences out there. And there's another guy who runs in all these same circles, very, very closely adjacent to us, who shares, I can tell you because I've heard him talk about it. He shares the values they went on, I already know, the values they went on to discuss with Tucker. He's probably going to listen to that episode. I'm talking about our Vice President, J.D. Vance. This had me just grinning like a Cheshire cat this afternoon when I started seeing these. The White House Twitter account said just the Vice President of the United States sending some freedom seeds downrange. Doesn't get more American than that. This is the sitting Vice President, a Marine himself. And we've got the White House account tweeting about freedom seeds, man. We are... Our guys have occupied the government. Holy. And look at these absolute Kino images that have come out today. The Iceman says, JD tight cluster Vance. Right. He got a headshot on that with all of this, all the wind going on. Our Vice President knows how to shoot.
Okay, thank you. Even if you didn't want bread, now you do. How you doing, man? Good. Where are you from?
Kentucky, sir.
Oh, really? Cool. Oh, yeah. I would love it. Yeah, thank you. I actually left for boot camp out of the airport a little bit.
Awesome.
Yeah. How you, Griffey? Where are you from? Okay. Man, some good Kentuckians here. How you doing?
Sold hit! Sold hit! Sold hit! Sold hit! Alright, weapon on safe. We're going to go ahead and get you to the next stage. Alright, thanks.
If you're one of those guys standing next to him and he misses, do you actually say that he missed? I guarantee you they would say that he missed. Now look at this.
We good? No projectiles? All good, sir. Okay, the media never let me live that one down. All right, just check it out. Sorry? Fire, right? Okay. How hard do I have to tell you? Okay. All right, man. Where you are. Good. Close it. Ready? Stand by. Fire.
Yes, sir. We'll get that cleaned up. And, so we'll move you over to photo with the Marines now.
Okay, yeah, we can do that.
Yeah. Now compare this to Tim Walz bumbling around with his shotgun. Oh, this is the most craven pandering ever, and it feels so good. It feels so good to have my Vice President blatantly pandering directly to me personally. It's working. It's working incredibly well. Look at this one, man. Look at this footage. Put this in a museum.
Stop. So we'll go back one. Now we're basically aimed right at the base of the gun on the tank. So do we go down a little bit? Base of the gun. Base, like if you look at the gun, like the tube, like the base of it, that's where we're aimed right now. So I want to go down a little bit. All right. So then we're going to put Now it looks like there's a guy in the tank. We're aimed at his head.
Commander, let's go back down one.
How's that? We're basically aimed at the chest of the tank commander. Now we're about where you told me to aim.
Good.
Ready to go?
Yes, sir.
All right. So die, fuzzy buddy, die. All right, about to get hot. Well, what do I do with my right hand?
As they say.
About to get hot.
Here, stay behind you. That way you're just taking a little bit of slack.
Ready to go?
Yes, sir. Base of the target.
Yeah. Got it. Okay. Ready?
Oh. Then he went up and gave this speech.
We're proud of you, and we're going to support you every single step of the way. God bless you, Marines. Semper Fidelis.
We'll put a boot in your ass. It's the American way. Hey, Uncle Sam, put your name at the top of his list. And the statue, every fist, and the eagle will fly. And
He's doing the Trump point. Ah! This is so brazen. They could not do anything more to just absolutely dig their thumbs right in the eye sockets of the Europeans. Every single European that sees this video, their face is going to melt off. And I love it. I absolutely love it. We've got our E4 vice president giving a speech to a bunch of Marines who start chimping, and you get Toby Keith playing. Oh! Oh, man. TC says this media-facing admin is a different class. The American people will never go back. Right. They're like, think about the personalities that are, and the capability that they have. Public speaking, just engaging with the media offhanded, their social media presence, knowing how to use social media. There is no comparison anywhere else in politics right now. This is easily the most competent, compelling group of people on the planet. I didn't think that it was going to be possible to get political representation like this quickly. I've never felt more personally represented by my government. You guys' comments are cracking me up in here. Straight Buster says, let's see 48 clean up in a Halo 3 lobby. I know that's his natural habitat. That's right. If they, oh my God. Can you imagine? Can you imagine them posting a video of JD Vance sitting in a Halo 3 lobby? Oh, man. Oh, I don't know if that makes me feel old or young. Oh, okay. So let's talk about maybe, Tikon says, never in my life have I been pandered to. This is what the nigs have been enjoying my whole life. Yeah, no kidding. This is what it feels like. Watch Nigel Farage doing slingshot practice next week. Oh, that's phenomenal. Oh, old Nigel. You gotta, yeah, man. What a sad story he is. Okay, Mike Waltz. So one of the less compelling members of the administration. News breaks today. Mike Waltz of Signal Chat fame forgot to lock down his Venmo, and it's full of journalists. Now get this. The guy who broke this story, his name is Daniel Boguslaw. An investigative reporter named Daniel Boguslaw. This can't possibly be his name. It cannot possibly actually be his name. But how would you land on Boguslaw as a pseudonym? This dude's name is actually Boguslaw. And he thought, hey, I'll go see if I could find Mike Waltz's Venmo. And yes, it's full of journalists. This week, The Atlantic published a stunning article on a group Signal chat that included the highest-ranking officials in the U.S. military and intelligence community, coordinating and executing a bombing campaign against the Houthis in Yemen. Jeffrey Goldberg, the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic and author of the article, was tagged into the chat by National Security Advisor Michael Waltz, a mistake that afforded the EIC a front-row seat to officials as high up as the Secretary of Defense and the Vice President, debating the decision. Once the attack plans. Now, interestingly, it's turned into attack plans. More on this here in a little bit. It was war plans as of yesterday. It is now attack plans. Goldberg chose to remove himself from the group chat, and before reversing course after public backlash, he censored parts of the conversation on national security grounds. That's the next story I have here is he released the full transcript, so we'll go over that here in just a minute. In a phone interview, Trump appeared to defend the National Security Advisor. Whether Waltz has fully learned his lesson seems to be more of an open question, especially given the prospect's discovery that his personal Venmo account remains public, with some 300 friends actively listed on his profile. And while Goldberg doesn't appear in Waltz's Venmo contact list, several other journalists do. Approximately 10 minutes after requesting comment, Michael Waltz's account disappeared from Venmo. Wired was the first to report the news. In a statement, National Security Council spokesperson James Hewitt said NSA Waltz was previously a U.S. congressman and Fox News contributor. He has relationships with people who work in media. There should be nothing surprising here. And honestly, I said this from the beginning when you had Goldberg. Everyone was spurging out about Goldberg and the idea of Waltz having his number. I'm still not like fully persuaded that that's even noteworthy to begin with. Fox News contributor, congressman, of course he's going to have phone numbers of journalists. Now, having them as Venmo contacts is maybe a little more noteworthy. But even then, this is how your social media account, how social media things work. You go through life, you're in this part of your life, and then you're in this part of your life, and then you're in this part of your life, and you accumulate contacts, and you set up an account, and it automatically ports your contacts in, or there's all sorts of ways that could wind up being there. Now, should he have had his Venmo account locked down and private? Yeah, probably. Just purely to prevent this from being made into a story by salacious story makers. I'm no fan of Mike Waltz. I think he's kind of a boob. I think that there is it's not completely out of the realm of possibility that he winds up getting his walking papers, and I don't think that would necessarily be the worst thing in the world. As long as Trump wants to keep him there, then I'm not going to spurg out about it. But this goes back to that there's no such thing as the public-private distinction. It doesn't exist. You have human beings who are going through life interacting with other human beings. And so then we create these sort of fictions in our mind, like you have a journalist and you have a politician. And these are some sort of different species or something that only exist in this fictional universe. But these are just people that interact with each other. And there's a whole lot of kayfabe that goes on in that whole world. You got it's gotten a little more serious over the last couple of years, but for a long time you would have, the White House press corps that would be pressing them with hard questions, and then the cameras go off and they're laughing and chatting and hanging out. You have congressmen who are, different parties, and they yell at each other, and then they just kind of go hang out. And this is changing. There is actual legitimate hard feelings and hostility developing between the members of different parties. But by and large, these are human beings that I think people don't spend a lot of time sitting and thinking. They have lots of strong opinions about these public figures, but they don't spend any time thinking about what their normal life is like. So, like, yeah, if you're living the life of a congressman and a media personality, and you're going to go to cocktail parties, and you're going to go to conferences, and you're going to go to these different things, and you're going to rub shoulders with people, you're going to trade contact information. But this doesn't mean that you're like friends or you're close with that person. And like, you'll see occasionally, for example, Elon will interact with people cordially on Twitter. And I'll see people in the mentions in his replies who are freaking out that, like, oh, don't you know that person is gay and sucks and yada, yada, yada. But it's like, the whole world isn't reduced down to your weird little online fantasies of LARP world and how these are professional people that engage with each other in a professional capacity. And so someone can be, have some sort of deranged political stance or whatever in public. But if you bump into them at the grocery store, you're not going to like pull down your pants and start peeing on them and spitting on them or something. You're going to be polite and cordial and whatever. There's a lot. I see everyone's tensions are just like ratcheted up, and they're looking for the next big thing. They're looking for that hit. Give me the hit. Give me the hit. Give me the controversy. And you have this on going in different directions, but it's the same personality. You have the oh God, Trump is a fascist. The Trump administration is going to melt the world and kill us all. And then you've got the Trump is owned by the Jews. Everything he's doing is for the Zionist state. Look at that. He talked to a Zionist. He smiled at him. That's proof that he's completely bought and paid for. And this is the same personality. Just because maybe the actual substance is different, it's still the same expression. It's the same personality trait. Fenris. I'm not going to read that out loud. Kate says, I can imagine politicians go out to lunch with journalists all the time for interviews or requests for comment. So it's not surprising he has journalists in his Venmo to split the bills. Exactly. Like, this is the thing is, you have your conception of what the journalist is like, and you see their tweets on Twitter, you're like, what a fucking moron, and then you got the politician. Well, if the journalist calls the politician up and is like, hey, I want to interview for you for this story, yeah, you're gonna go meet up with them and sit there and have lunch, and you're gonna be on the record or off the record, and this is completely ordinary and normal in the course of life on the Hill. Now, for the actual mechanics of how this worked out, I'm still not fully convinced that this wasn't an op and or a counter op. I still haven't completely sorted out how it would work in my head, and a lot of the theories I've seen people putting forth are just not that compelling to me. Like this was orchestrated by the administration to leak their opinions toward Europe and put all the European policymakers on notice, and I think it had that effect, but I don't see them creating this whole story specifically for that. It just doesn't make sense to me. I think that the administration is extremely competent, and they could do that if they wanted to. I don't think it's beyond them. I just don't see why they would. I'm imagining myself sitting down in a room and having this discussion, being like, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to, that guy, Jeffrey Goldberg, that notorious hoaxer, we're going to add him to this conversation, and we're going to feed him this big scandal. So he spat. I guess I could be talked into it, but I'm very skeptical of it. On the flip side, I find it entirely plausible that Goldberg was coordinating with someone on the inside to get himself added into something like that so that he could leak. And honestly, it would be fairly easy to do. If you had someone on the inside, like all you have to do is like change the contact information. And it's JG. So maybe you just go in and you switch the phone numbers. You delete one contact and switch the phone numbers. It's very plausibly, there's a lot of plausible deniability here. Or it could have been as simple as whoever put the chat together, which it sounds like, I've got a clip here in a second. It sounds like Waltz himself was not the one who personally put the chat together. It was his deputy, I think, Alex Wong, the staffer, who's a rather sketchy figure in his own right. So it's entirely plausible that he intentionally put Jonah Goldberg in there as JG, making it look like it was Jameson Greer, with the ability to just go, oops, I clicked the wrong one. Oh, stupid me. And maybe you get fired, but hey, you got your guy on the inside and you got your story. And there's the possibility that you're able to just be like, oh man, it was such a bad mistake. I can't believe it. I'll never do that again. I think that could have happened accidentally, and that also could have happened intentionally by Goldberg trying to root his way in somewhere. Because for the first 2 months of this administration, they have been leak tight completely. Nothing is leaking out. You get these stories that hit and it blindsides everyone because nobody saw it coming. It's the polar opposite of the first administration. So I would imagine the people who want leaks, and Goldberg has a documented track record of trying to source salacious off-the-record conversations to frame them in the worst light possible and create a big hoax and scandal that then becomes fodder for Trump's enemies to use going forward. So he absolutely is the type of person who would be trying to solicit someone on the inside to get him added in there somewhere. And once you start playing with that idea, then there's more questions. So say it was this Alex Wong guy. Maybe it was some other staffers. Let's just run with this. It was this Alex Wong guy. So did he get this connection with him and be like, hey, when you get a chance, get me into something like that? And then Alex Wong is like, hey, here's a good opportunity. I'm gonna drop you in there. And was the idea that Goldberg is supposed to get in there and then just kind of lurk until he gets a story, and it just so happened he got a story right away? Or was he being added in because, hey, here comes a story, here's something that you can do, they're going to have this conversation in here, so I'm going to make you party to that so you can turn it into a story? Whatever it was, I think the one very obvious truth is that they've gotten so desperate that this is the sort of thing they're trying to turn into a scandal, and it's just not going to do anything. It's weak. It's very weak. It's very flimsy. If anything, the administration comes off looking better. The base isn't going to bat an eye at it whatsoever. The only people who are going to be upset about it are the people who are already inclined to be upset about the administration for this thing or that thing or the other thing. Just Loki here, Loki Julianus, said, how do we know that Goldberg was actually in that chat? Nobody seems to remember adding him, and no one seems to have noticed when he exited, which he allegedly did sometime before publishing his stories. If there's a back door, then he could lurk undetected and take screenshots, and then invent some story about how he was invited out of the blue in order to sow suspicion and discord among the ranks. He's not going to say, yes, Israel inserted a back door into this thing like 2 years ago, and we break it out for special occasions. Elon's software people are apparently investigating, and they could probably figure out what happened. But it's like, let's not take Jeffrey Goldberg at his word about fucking anything that cannot be independently corroborated. And I think this is the most important point here. There's a lot of people who are upset in one way or the other who are implicitly accepting the story from Jeffrey Goldberg. The notion that Michael Waltz added him. We don't know this for sure. There's screenshots, and the screenshots seem real. They would be pretty easy to doctor. But then there's the question of, was Michael Waltz the one who added him? Or was it someone else who did? That changes the complexion entirely. And then there's the substance of the emails or of the messages themselves. And actually, I'll get to those here in just a second. But before that, here's Josh Hawley saying, kind of drops an interesting little nugget here, talking about that staffer.
It was a mistake, and you think everybody's been held accountable and owned it?
You know, listen, I thought that the National Security Advisor was clear about this yesterday. The president was clear about it. You know, some staffer who apparently set up the group chat, I assume that person probably won't be in charge of meetings anymore. At the end of the day, this strike was successful. There was no classified material out there. The strike was not compromised in any way. America is safer today because...
So he goes on, and actually, let me play it a little longer.
...the actions that President Trump took. The libs can't complain about that. So
okay, there. The libs can't complain about that. We got a congressman, or we got a senator calling them libs, which is funny. And then he just goes on with the kind of the standard boilerplate thing about how the attack was successful and yada, yada, yada. So from the sound of it, this is the first thing I've seen is basically confirmation that it was a staffer who actually set up the group chat in the first place, which to the extent that this is a story, that's a substantial detail. And he says, I assume he won't be in charge of meetings anymore. This would be one thing to look for, is to see if that staffer disappears somehow. Gets maybe he winds up with Bukele. Guy from V says the admin seems to have accepted their veracity. Yeah, I think so. Like, that's the thing, is the administration hasn't been fighting whether or not they're real. They've been saying, yeah, it is real, and it's not a big deal. Who cares? Guy from V also says a lot of canary traps look like this they've done in the past. They don't advertise the success they have with finding leakers. I believe the Epstein files scenario is a canary trap also. It's still in progress. I agree with all of that. And the thing that really I keep coming back to is the tweets that I shared yesterday. The one from Tulsi Gabbard talking about leakers from within the intelligence community that was tweeted the morning after this conversation went down. The initial part of the conversation where they're appointing their POCs. Tulsi Gabbard's thing about leakers from the intelligence community and how we're going to hunt them down, that gets published the day after that. And then a week later, the DOD announces that they're going after people who are leaking information. That's very, very interesting timing. And they've said multiple times about how they've got Elon and his people looking into how he got in there. That's a level of bullshitting that would be kind of discordant with the way the administration has been to this point. If it really is just, somebody put him in there, and we're trying to figure out how he got in there. This administration is way too media savvy to say that if the true story behind it is just, someone added him in there accidentally and it was a mix-up with numbers or something. You're not going to say, we've got Elon and his software geniuses looking at it to see what happened with it. Because they themselves would know that that's bullshit. Maybe other past politicians might not have known that, but they themselves would know that's bullshit, and they would know that that would smell like bullshit to people. So if they're actually employing Elon and his software geniuses to try to solve this problem, that hints to me even more that there is a deeper level of hack or exploit or something that was employed here. And if that's the case, like once you open that door, then I think then you really can't rule out things like some sort of a counterintelligence operation being undertaken to basically bait him in. Like the fact that it's Jeff Goldberg of all people, who's a well-known hoaxer who will run with the flimsiest of things and squeeze every last little bit of juicy can out of it. He is the prime candidate to get baited by something. Tikon says that this is the best they've got. They've really lost the plot. Yeah, absolutely. I guess the thing that still holds me back from going full, Q level, looking for connections and pattern noticing and stuff here is that all of those would presume that like the administration decided this is the best way to go about it, and that dealing with this scandal and the hullabaloo around it for a little bit was worth going through because of just how good it would be on the backside. Yeah, I guess then you could say, oh, maybe something kind of got out of their control and they're kind of making. Anyways, there's lots of directions you could go with it. They did the Rapid Response 47 account did say this. Flashback to 2017 when The Atlantic called Signal the gold standard of encrypted messaging and admitted it was used by Obama and Hillary Clinton staffers. It says Confide isn't the first secure communications app to find popularity among politicians and their aides. Signal, the gold standard of encrypted messaging and calling, is used by staffers who work for President Trump, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, and New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio. The one thing that has definitely happened from all of this is that The Atlantic has gotten completely dragged through the mud. I'm sure they're going to get a boost in clicks and subs maybe here for a short period of time, but it's not going to do much for them. This has been pretty humiliating. Now compare this headline from the original. This is the original article from Monday. The Trump administration accidentally texted me its war plans. Compare that with this one, published this morning. Here are the attack plans that Trump's advisors shared on Signal. So remember I played the video for you yesterday of Goldberg talking to Tim Miller. And Goldberg's like, oh, I don't know if I could publish those things. And maybe I might have to talk to someone and see about some way I could make them public or whatever. And here the next day, it's just being published. So about that Signal chat, on Monday, shortly after we published a story about a massive Trump administration security breach, a reporter asked the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, why he had shared plans about a forthcoming attack on Yemen on the Signal messaging app. He answered, nobody was texting war plans. That's all I have to say about that. Oh, hold on. Actually, did I have this set? Okay, I'm not going to read the whole thing. This is all I wanted it for. So, here's the parts that we've seen before. I think this message was one he left out. What's interesting here is the change. Going from war plans to attack plans. That's interesting. Why would you make that change? Is there a legal reason for that? Because there's a potential legal liability issue here using war versus attack. Does war have more legal weight to it? Is this an SEO thing? Is this what would be the journalistic reasons for making a change like that? The fact that they made a change is kind of interesting. And then I believe this was a message that he said he wasn't going to read out loud, or he wasn't going to publish, was John Ratcliffe saying, from CIA perspective, we are mobilizing assets to support now, but a delay would not negatively impact us, and additional time would be used to identify better starting points for coverage on Houthi leadership. Again, nothing classified in that. He completely blowing this out of proportion. And then this is another one, Michael Waltz. This is one he said that he wouldn't publish. Waltz says the trade figures we have are 15% of global and 30% of container. It's difficult to break that down to U.S. specific because much of the container either going through the Red Sea still or around the Cape of Good Hope are components going to Europe that turns into manufactured goods for the transatlantic trade to the United States. So basically, these goods are going to be taken to Europe. Europe's going to use them in their manufacturing, and we purchase those things. So how exactly do you figure out to what extent these are, this is American implicated trade versus European implicated trade? Whether we pull the plug or not today, European navies do not have the capability to defend against the types of sophisticated anti-ship cruise missiles and drones the Houthis are now using. So whether it's now or several weeks from now, it will have to be the United States that reopens these shipping lanes. Per the president's request, we are working with DoD and state to determine how to compile the cost associated and levy them on the Europeans. Now, I could imagine that maybe some of the European countries wouldn't want this published. Or maybe they would. I don't know. Maybe this is a justification. See, yeah, we don't have these things. We need to spend on our own defense. Great. Yeah, please do spend on your own defense and fuck off. And then he says, as we stated in the first PC, which is the Principals Committee, we have a fundamental decision of allowing the sea lanes to remain closed or to reopen them now or later. We are the only ones with the capability, unfortunately. And then he mangles this. I don't know exactly what he meant to say here, but he says, from a messaging standpoint, we absolutely add this two of horribles on why the Europeans must invest in their defense. So something like add this to the list of reasons why the Europeans must invest in their defense. So this is, assuming this is a real conversation between the actual members of the administration, we're seeing that this is clearly the position of the administration, that the Europeans need to pay their fair share. And then these ones were already public. There's JD's message. This one was the new one that they published. This is Pete Hegseth. This is the top secret war plans, the classified information that was leaked. Pete Hegseth, team update. Time now, 11:44 Eastern. Weather is favorable. Just confirmed with CENTCOM we are a go for mission launch. 12:15 Eastern. F-18s launch, first strike package. 13:45. Trigger-based F-18 first strike window starts. Target terrorist is at his known location, so should be on time. Also, strike drones launch MQ-9s. 14:10. More F-18s launch, second strike package. 14:15. Strike drones on target. This is when the first bombs will definitely drop, pending earlier trigger-based targets. 15:36. F-18 second strike starts. Also, first sea-based Tomahawks launched. More to follow per timeline. We are currently clean on OPSEC. Godspeed to our warriors. And Vance says, I will say a prayer for victory. So, what we must believe now is that them ordering a strike on the Houthis would mean that it would be a great surprise that F-18s show up to do this strike. Like, yeah, it's not good to have this stuff public, but it's also not anywhere near top secret or classified or could compromise the mission. It's a nothing burger. Complete nothing burger. And I would imagine that they got the okay from the administration to publish this. And if I was the administration, I'd be like, yeah, fuck it. Publish it. Who cares? It's already done. What are we going to learn? They use F-18s and MQ-9s when they're heading something from a carrier strike group. Wah! Breaking news. Nothing burger. And here's how Pete Hegseth replied. So let me get this straight. The Atlantic released the so-called war plans, and those plans include no names, no targets, no locations, no units, no routes, no sources, no methods, and no classified information. Those are some really shitty war plans. This only proves one thing. Jeff Goldberg has never seen a war plan or an attack plan, as he now calls it. Not even close. As I type this, my team and I are traveling the Indo-PACOM. I don't know exactly how you pronounce that out loud. I've only ever seen it written. Indo-PACOM region, meeting with commanders, the guys who make real war plans, and talking to troops. We will continue to do our job while the media does what it does best. Peddle hoaxes. Remember when it was like, when a politician would use profanity? These are some really shitty war plans. I got to ask my military bros out there, is war plan an actual, is that an actual phrase that has distinct meaning versus is this why they change it from war plan to attack plan? Because saying that it's a war plan and a war plan is an actual term of art. Thank you, guy from V. If war plan is an actual a term of art that has a distinct meaning, and they're saying by them switching to attack plan, this is like an implicit concession that they're like, oh yeah, actually this isn't war plans. We're just a bunch of gay journos who don't know the difference. I'm curious to know that. I wouldn't know it myself. So there is a lawsuit that is happening over this signal chat, which kind of clarifies increasingly the motivation behind all of this, as if we needed that. We got a 16-month member chat from Well Emmanuel. He says, confidential leak. I'm pretending to work while listening to the ASTROLABE. We won't tell anyone. Thank you, sir. Appreciate the membership. This is from the Daily Wire. Judge who blocked deportation flights assigned to signal chat lawsuit. Can you believe it? What are the chances that Judge Boasberg is the one who gets this signal chat lawsuit? A left-wing federal judge who is already locked in a feud with the Trump administration has been assigned to the lawsuit over the leaked signal chat, where officials discussed impending military actions against Houthi targets in Yemen. U.S. District Court Judge James Boasberg, an Obama appointee, has been assigned the lawsuit, which was filed by an organization that claims the signal chat violated the Federal Records Act. The communications were released Monday by the Atlantic's editor-in-chief Jeffrey Goldberg, and the lawsuit has been filed by American Oversight versus Hegseth et al. The Trump administration is already locked in a feud with Boasberg over his attempt to prevent the president from expediting the removal of Tren de Aragua gang members to El Salvador through the use of the Alien Enemies Act. Rep. Brandon Gill from Texas is now seeking to impeach Boasberg over his injunction against the Trump administration's expedited removal of illegal aliens believed to be tied to Tren de Aragua, a transnational criminal organization that the administration has designated as a foreign terror organization. Boasberg has a history of stonewalling President Trump's efforts while his wife is engaged in overly partisan activity. He issued a ruling in 2018 that limited the administration's ability to detain migrant families who had entered the country, hindering Trump's attempt to disincentivize illegal immigration by limiting the issuance of parole. The Obama-appointed judge also granted leniency to the only official charge in connection with the Russiagate hoax. He also, his wife has donated more than $11,000 to Democratic candidates and committees, including to Hillary for America when she faced off against Trump in 2016. She's also the founder of Meadow Reproductive Health and Wellness, an abortion clinic in North Virginia. Now, this organization, American Oversight, has... Oh, hold on. Oh, no, I lost that tweet. Why does this keep happening to me? It keeps happening to me. Definitely is not my responsibility. American Oversight. American Oversight, I wanted to confirm the names here. So, American Oversight is David Brock and Norm Eisen. Crew, their organization, was the lawfare arm of their effort to target Trump 1.0. Alex Wong, who apparently added the journalist to the signal chat, was an attorney with Covington and Burling who did pro bono work for Crew. American Oversight immediately had their lawsuit ready to file. This needs to be fully investigated. This is from listen_to_learn, the researcher, anonymous account on Twitter. And then, let's see, related with Boasberg, I had this in the stack from a couple days ago from Matt Gaetz. Screenshot here from this United States District Court for the District of Columbia on the case regarding the Alien Enemies Act. The executive branch hereby notifies the court. So this is coming from Trump's DOJ. The executive branch hereby notifies the court that no further information will be provided in response to the court's March 18, 2025 minute order based on the state secrets privilege and the concurrently filed declarations of the Secretary of State and the Secretary of Homeland Security. So the DOJ is saying, the executive branch hereby notifies the court, we are not going to give you any more information in response to your order because of state secrets privilege. This is a case about the president's plenary authority, derived from Article 2 and the mandate of the electorate, and reinforced by longstanding statute to remove from the homeland designated terrorists participating in a state-sponsored invasion of and predatory incursion into the United States. The court has all of the facts it needs to address the compliance issues before it. Further intrusions on the executive branch would present dangerous and wholly unwarranted separation of powers harms with respect to diplomatic and national security concerns that the court lacks competence to address. The court is not competent to address these things. Accordingly, the state secrets privilege forecloses further demands for details that have no place in this matter, and the government will address the court's order to show cause tomorrow by demonstrating that there is no basis for the suggestion of non-compliance with any binding order. Gates says the DOJ is telling the judge, it's over, move on. Fortunately for Mr. Boasberg, he's going to have to move on from this one, but he's got his next one lined up already. So what's up with these D.C. district judges? Well, per the Federalist, a third of all D.C. district judges were not born in the United States. Let me say that one more time. A third of all D.C. district judges were not born in the United States. So we are supposed to believe that district judges wield power the president must submit to, and those judges, a third of them, are not even Americans. They have been invited into the country as guests. Yes, we let them stay here. They can live here. But they're not Americans. The United States District Court for the District of Columbia, the source of many of the cases interfering with President Donald Trump's authority, has 15 judges, and 5 of them were born outside the United States. The chief judge is James Boasberg. While country of origin doesn't come up in most jobs, it is worth asking if judges with ties to foreign nations and cultures are the right ones to make decisions affecting the U.S. military or immigration. The concept of foreign-born judges is a newer phenomenon in this district. The concept of foreign-born judges should not exist. If you're foreign-born, you don't get to be a judge. How is this that difficult? Why would this even be controversial? If you were born in another country, then no, you don't get to be a judge. If you're a military brat, you're born in Germany or something to American parents who are there because they're in the military. Okay, sure. But if you were born to natives of another country in another country, no, you don't get to come be a judge in the United States. Can we say that maybe having a heritage that at least shares our legal tradition is a requirement? At the very least. In addition to the 15 main judges, the D.C. district has 10 older senior judges who still occasionally hear cases in the district. This group, nominated as far back as Ronald Reagan in the 80s, were all born in the U.S. But starting in 2014, former President Barack Obama appointed Judge Tanya Sue Chutkan, born in Kingston, Jamaica. She was in the U.S. by 1979, attending George Washington University. Before sitting on federal court, she had no experience as a judge. Chutkan is overseeing the legal challenge to Doge's work to slash excess government spending. She was born in Jamaica. She had no experience as a judge. And Barack Hussein Obama appointed her to federal court. Obama also appointed Judge Amit P. Mehta to the D.C. court. Mehta also had no previous experience as a judge. Mehta was born in Patan, Gujarat, India. He and his parents came to the U.S. when he was a baby, age 1. Pretend that I just played a train horn. I don't have one here. He was raised in Maryland. Mehta will oversee 4 January 6 civil cases that aim to blame Trump for injuries and squeeze money, court time, and political embarrassment out of him. Imagine that. Imagine if you had foreign-born judges and, yeah, they actually weren't completely corrupt pieces of shit. Apparently, we don't get any of those. We just get the foreign-born judges. Like, we shouldn't have foreign-born judges in the first place. The ones we do have just so happens that they rule against Americans' interests. Huh. The other 3 foreign-born judges were nominated by former President Joe Biden. So Obama nominated all of these foreign-born judges. Judge Ana Cecilia Reyes was nominated in 2021, also with no prior experience as a judge. She's the one who blocked the Trump's order to remove all transgender people from the military. She was born in Montevideo, Uruguay, and moved to Spain. And while still a child, moved to Louisville, Kentucky, where she grew up. She is the first openly LGBT Latina to be appointed to this court. LGBT Latina, foreign-born. There's 4 reasons why she should be a judge. Reyes presided over an objection to Trump's executive order declaring gender dysphoria as inconsistent with the high standards for troop readiness. She blocked Trump's order with a preliminary injunction. The first Muslim and Arab American in the D.C. District Court, Judge Amir Hatem Mahdi Ali, was born and raised in Canada to Egyptian parents. These are drawing from like the dregs. If you gave me like a list of qualifications that I would not want my federal judges having, they're drawing from like the bottom of that list. An Arab American Muslim with Egyptian parents, born and raised in Canada. According to his questionnaire for judicial nominees, he was not required to register for the U.S. Selective Service. That is because he was not a citizen until 2019. He graduated from the University of Waterloo in Ontario, Canada, with a software engineering degree in 2008, and then attended Harvard Law School in the U.S., graduating with a law degree in 2011. He worked as a volunteer on Biden's 2020 transition team and for a phone bank in support of Biden's presidential campaign. 4 years ago, he was working for a phone bank. And he is now a federal judge. He worked for some nonprofits, but never served as a judge until Biden appointed him in 2024. How in the flying fuck do you get a phone bank volunteer appointed as a federal judge? Amir has written extensively and negatively about Trump's so-called travel ban, a 2017 executive order which restricted travel to the U.S. from 7 predominantly Muslim countries for 90 days. In his writing, he said, quote, prejudice and intolerance were, quote, the very hallmark of Trump's campaign against Muslims. Yeah, I don't want any Muslim judges. This is a Christian country. Let's say bare minimum qualification is you don't have any Muslim judges. Before he was a judge, Ali spoke at the National Press Foundation and gave tips to reporters about how to cover the courts. When confirmed, he was a member of the Capital Area Muslim Bar Association, Muslim American Judicial Advisory Council, National Arab American Bar Association, National Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, National Police Accountability Project, and the Native American Bar Association of D.C., among others. Ali single-handedly restored $2 billion in USAID spending to foreign nonprofit contractors that the Trump administration had paused for 90 days in a stunning overreach of authority last month. So the dude 4 years ago was working at a fucking phone bank, and he single-handedly restored $2 billion in USAID funding. These people must go. But the stories I've told you so far are nothing. The newest judge on the D.C. District Court is also foreign-born. Before slinking out of office, Biden and his handlers got, are you ready for this? Judge Sparkle Suknanan. Judge Sparkle Suknanan. This is Judge Sparkle Suknanan. Just like Lippincott says, she was born in Trinidad and Tobago. Yes, Sparkle is her real name. Clown Country. She was sworn in January 2nd, 2025. Born in the dual island nation Trinidad and Tobago in 1983, she left her home country at age 16 to pursue college and graduated from Brooklyn Law School in 2010. She was a law clerk for Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor, and during the Biden administration, she was the principal deputy assistant attorney general in the Civil Rights Division for the Department of Justice before Biden tapped her for her first ever judge gig in the D.C. court. Last week, Suknanan dutifully did her part to slow Trump's agenda, ordering the reinstatement of Democrat Susan Grundmann to the Federal Labor Relations Authority, a move that keeps the board in a Democrat majority. None of these cases have gone in front of conservative judges in conservative states, say in Missouri or South Dakota. They all happen to land in the laps of judges that have spoken out or ruled against Trump or his policies in the past. Out of all the judges in the nation, all 5 foreign-born judges of the D.C. District Court managed to get their fingerprints on a controversial Trump case. What are the odds of that? Out of all the judges in the nation, all 5 foreign-born judges of the D.C. District Court managed to get their fingerprints on a controversial Trump case. Federal injunctions by president. Barack Obama, 12. Donald Trump first term, 64. Joe Biden, 14. Donald Trump second term in 2 months, 15. The United States is in the midst of a soft coup. Not the violent kind that takes out a nation's leader, but one orchestrated by judicial actions that choke off executive power before our eyes. We've seen blah, 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 blah. The only remedy now is for the Supreme Court to step in and this time get its hands dirty, deliberate, and make real decisions based on the Constitution. No. Yeah, I mean, yes. The Supreme Court should step in and do this. But that's not the only remedy. The ultimate remedy is for the president to dissolve some of these courts. Just eliminate them. Just dissolve them. These courts are not courts anymore. That's the solution. Or if the courts want to continue to exist, these people are going to be replaced. The judiciary needs to be purged. This is an existential issue in the country. We cannot have a country with blatant criminals and foreigners with massive conflicts of interest and criminal foreigners with massive conflicts of interest serving as judges. It's insane, completely and utterly insane to suggest that you would have, I wouldn't tell Irish people that they should have American judges. I wouldn't tell Italian people that they need to have Australian judges. It's completely and utterly absurd. And now you've got some of these retarded Europeans who have the audacity to claim that this is like, that they're being oppressed by Americans. Americans, it's the global American empire. It's Americans who are doing all of this to us. You Americans need to apologize for everything you did. Really? It sure doesn't seem like we've got Americans running the show here. Now, one mild, positive, judiciary-related story. U.S. Supreme Court declines appeal in youth-led climate change case. This is from Zero Hedge. The U.S. Supreme Court on March 24 declined to hear an appeal in a lawsuit led by minors that... This sounds like a Babylon Bee headline. That alleged the U.S. government has unconstitutionally deprived the children of rights to life and liberty by causing climate change to worsen. Justices in an unsigned decision denied cert to a petition from Kelsey Cascadia Rose Juliana and 20 other minors. No justices offered an explanation for the decision. Plaintiffs sued the government in 2015, alleging that the U.S. government for decades, quote, has known that carbon dioxide pollution from burning fossil fuels was causing global warming and dangerous climate change, and that continuing to burn fossil fuels would destabilize the climate system on which present and future generations of our nation depend for their well-being and survival. Actions taken despite that knowledge, including an approval of a liquid natural gas terminal in Oregon, endangered the youth, the suit said. Ah, yes, let's listen to the children. The children who say, we must eliminate the greatest form of power known to mankind and return ourselves to the Stone Age to preserve the environment. In a split decision, a U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit panel decided in 2020 that the relief the plaintiffs sought, including an order mandating the government develop a plan to phase out fossil fuel emissions, quote, is beyond our constitutional power. The court instructed U.S. District Judge Ann Aiken to dismiss the case. Aiken declined, allowing plaintiffs to amend their complaint. Ann Aiken needs to go to Bukele. In 2023, she ruled in favor of the minors, finding that plaintiffs had adequately alleged that their constitutional rights were being infringed by the government's actions. Frankly, we don't need any more female judges. There are much higher callings that women are much more suited for. And having women as judges is a great way to get a fucked up judiciary. She said at the time, quote, "The judiciary is capable and duty-bound to provide redress for the irreparable harm government fossil fuel promotion has caused." You know, it's possible for men to get suckered in by gay propaganda, but it's much more likely for women to get suckered in by gay propaganda. And typically that's when the men start doing it too. Because the men start following the gay propaganda because they want to be appealing to women. That's what makes it fashionable. So get the women out of the judiciary. Judge, just like president, just like father, just like priest, is a role for men only. The Ninth Circuit in 2024 again sided with the government, upholding the 2020 ruling and telling Aiken to dismiss the litigation. Plaintiffs lodged a petition with the Supreme Court asking justices to intervene. That led to Monday's denial. I'm not even going to read you this statement from one of the plaintiffs. They say that their case helped influence other cases that had resulted in positive rulings, including the 2024 Montana Supreme Court ruling that found the state violated residents' constitutional right to a clean environment by issuing permits for oil, gas, and coal projects without considering impacts on the environment. I don't give a shit about the environment. I do not give a shit about the environment if it means sacrificing our ability to be energy independent. We are more than capable of it. The only thing preventing it, the only thing standing in the way of it, is these sorts of people. These sorts of people do not deserve a voice. They do not deserve representation. They do not deserve to have their opinions heard. They must subordinate themselves to our values. End of story. $5 super chat from Hermetic Hegemony says, our Zoomer autists who read law books and history tomes for fun should be in these positions. Way more qualified. Long way to retirement as well. Yes. Yes. Let's get our Zoomer autists into the judiciary. That's what I'm talking about. Mr. Vice President, I know you're listening. When you're president, just start appointing Zoomer autists. Thank you, sir. That is all, sir. Here's good Thomas Massie. Yeah, Judge Big Balls. Yeah. We're going to get our first broccoli-haired judge under President J.D. Vance. Thomas Massie, today I introduced H.R. 2356, the Dual Loyalty Disclosure Act. Based as hell. That is an approving ding. If we continue allowing dual citizens to run for federal office, candidates should disclose to voters all countries in which they hold citizenship. Thank you to co-sponsors Andy Biggs, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Clay Higgins. That's pretty cool. Pretty cool shot. Let me see what it actually says here. A bill to require that the statement required under the Federal Election Campaign Act of 1971 for a candidate to designate a principal campaign committee include information with respect to whether the candidate is a citizen of any country other than the United States and for other purposes. Be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America in Congress assembled, this act may be something as the Dual Loyalty Disclosure Act. It's the Election Campaign Act of 1971 is amended by inserting and shall include, in the case the candidate is a citizen of any country other than the United States, a disclosure with respect to each citizenship that includes as identification of the other country of which the candidate is a citizen after principal campaign committee of each candidate. The amendment, effective date, the amendment made by this section shall take effect on the date of the enactment of this act. Bill number is 2356. So obviously, dual citizens should not be able to run for federal office, but this is a good start. I'll take it. And relatedly, incredible things are happening. So yesterday, there's a trend going around right now. Actually, let me pull this up here real quick before we before we talk about Crowder, let's talk about Crowder. There's a trend that's been happening on Twitter for the last few days, and I stooped to participate yesterday, and then was immediately humiliated. Here it is. So everyone's been saying, hey, at Grok, based on my tweets, which public figure, past or present, do I sound like? Grok replied, based on your tweets, you sound like Steven Crowder. Your mix of politics, sports, and American identity talk matches his style. Like Crowder, you've got a casual, direct tone. Think, you what, mate? And host live streams on current events. Your king-pilled handle hints at a red pill vibe, aligning with his conservative, edgy takes. I said, you motherfucker. Other people have gotten worse, so I'm not going to complain too much. Particularly because, Mr. Crowder is starting to touch the no-no topics. Before I play that, actually, let me. Sorry, I'm a little out of order here today, but I sent that tweet from Grok to Amy yesterday, and her response was, "When do you start abusing me?" Shout out to my wife. So Andrew Torba popped this onto my timeline. He says, incredible things are happening. Here is Steven Crowder talking about why he doesn't like AIPAC. Now, this is a little, it's lukewarm. He's lukewarm, but lukewarm is better than cold, I suppose.
Now, here's the first claim I'm going to address, and this will get me sideways with conservative nonprofits who support Israel no matter what at every single point, including AIPAC, that AIPAC is a very conservative organization.
AIPAC's election war chest, financed by major donors, including several Republican billionaires and key GOP funders, has started imposing expensive consequences for lawmakers who express criticism of the U.S.'s unwavering support for Israel.
Okay, here's the truth. AIPAC donates significantly more to Democrats than Republicans. They do donate a lot to Republicans. Again, their only qualifier is, do you support Israel, period. That is not an American ideal as far as policy. They give more to Democrats. So in 2024, Democrat candidates received from AIPAC, to give you an idea, $19.1 million. I believe this is a total of congressional and Senate candidates. Republicans, $15.7 million. The average contribution on a candidate-by-candidate basis for Democrats, $117,000. For Republicans, $66,000. So almost twice given to individual Democrats, to be clear. Let me give you some examples, by the way. And this is, look, I'm a Christian.
You guys are hearing it, right? You guys are hearing it? I have not been a Louder with Crowder watcher in a while, so I don't know if that's a regular sound effect that they use, or if this is, are they signaling something? Because you're going to hear here, he's going to do a lot of groveling right here. But then he kind of pulls it out just a little bit. But, like, a ding in this video.
And I sat in an evangelical church where, it was always support Israel. And by the way, of course, as Christians, we do believe that they have the right to exist to that land. Fine, but I'm separating that here. I didn't realize just how corrosive it was to have such a large organization supporting awful people who seek the destruction of your country. And here's the thing. That has nothing to do with Jews. For example, AIPAC gave $866,000 to Hakeem Jeffries, $519,000 to Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Kirsten Gillibrand, $480,000. Nancy Pelosi, only $8,000, but she doesn't need it. She has insider trading to fall back on.
They gave her money in other ways.
Sounds like a laugh track.
So this is the issue here. You have people on the evangelical right who believe that Israel's our greatest ally. That certainly is likely the case, can be argued. That doesn't mean that AIPAC is if they're giving to Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Hakeem Jeffries, and they brag about how 98% of their candidates are elected. Well, hold on a second. Let me ask you. Am I supposed to be on board with AIPAC? Does it make me anti-Semitic if I don't abandon my pro-First Amendment principles, my pro-Second Amendment principles, my pro-life principles? Why would I abandon all those principles just because your only qualifier is supporting Israel? I do support Israel. I don't support those candidates, and I don't support a giant organization giving those candidates money because you're actively fighting against the United States of America. Their primary goal, AIPAC, is to get pro-Israel candidates elected. That's it. That does seem to me perhaps anti-American. This is from its own website. They spent $70 million in 2024 to support pro-Israel candidates, and 90-something% of the candidates won. They even brag that they helped defeat huge Second Amendment advocate Brandon Herrera in his primary because he was not pro-Israel enough. It's like those people who say, I've been a Republican, but I can't vote for Donald Trump. It's a matter of principle. Okay, so the alternative? You abandon all your principles to vote for Kamala Harris because you don't like Donald Trump? He may not be pro-life enough for you. It's a state, when we're talking about the state issue, Supreme Court. Okay, fine. The choice is a candidate who supports abortion all the way up until including birth, period, and violating your right to self-preservation and transitioning minors. Why do you not have a problem with abandoning all of those principles?
Right.
Why are conservatives expected to abandon all these principles? Because they're afraid of being accused of anti-Semitism if they have a problem with AIPAC supporting Hakeem Jeffries, Wasserman Schultz, Pelosi, Gillibrand. The only qualifier of AIPAC, and this is what I believe people have a problem with, it's a legitimate gripe. The only qualifier is, do you support Israel regardless of any other constitutional stances? And that's the only thing that this group cares about, lobbying American representatives as they advocate for American policy, and they're giving you money.
Damn it, Jeremy, you got me dying over here. He says, I've never heard a neocon argument for noticing this is insane. A rabbi pointing at another rabbi saying it's the rabbi. You know, it's wild. I haven't listened to Crowder in, 2025? Probably been 6 or 7 years since I listened to him. Which is kind of funny because once upon a time, Crowder, the thing that pulled me to Crowder in the first place was kind of like edgy right-wing political commentary that's humorous and funny and everything. And the whole world has blazed on past him to where he's now trying to keep up. And see, that's the big takeaway here. So like Mellon says, this is Asmongold level based adjacent. There is no threat to him saying this or very little. And if he's attacked, he can use his groveling as a defense. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. This is very lukewarm. This is just like kind of starting to warm up maybe just a little bit. And it's obviously being done out of like trying to keep up with the times. But that's the thing. Steven Crowder of several months ago even would not have felt like he needed to talk about this kind of thing to keep up with the times. It's interesting you mention Asmongold because Asmongold's been really coming right along. These guys are very good bellwethers for the normie, the FanDuel American, the Barstool American. And if the Barstool Americans are saying, hold on a second, if you're a lobbying organization in our country whose only qualification for a candidate to support is, are you pro-Israel? And you can't, and purity testing you, like, oh, you're not pro-Israel enough. That's a problem. No, I don't want you influencing our politics. This is how it starts. This is how it begins. This issue's not going back. You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. It's not going away. There's a lot of people who all of their commentary revolves around this one issue. And so for them, having this become the mainstream, just normal thing, like they've built an identity around opposing this issue. They are outsiders. My whole personality is about how completely shut out and powerless and overrun I am. And every single issue gets reduced to this one core observation. It's the definition of having a hammer and everything looking like a nail. So those people don't want to recognize this reality because that's going to take away their identity. They don't get to, in I don't know, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, being super edgy base noticer that gets your social media accounts banned everywhere isn't going to be a thing anymore. You're not going to have your cool little identity that you get to put on anymore because it's just going to be kind of normal and commonplace. Noticing that Jews are overrepresented in these various positions observing that and commenting on it. It's going to be much more commonplace. You're not special and edgy and you don't have street cred because you're clued in on the biggest open secret in politics. It's just going to be normal and commonplace. People are going to be like, yeah, I don't want my politicians supporting Israel over the United States. Like, yeah, Israel's great. It's cool. I'm more power to them. I want them to be successful. I want them to be, wealthy and prosperous and whatever, great ally. But you got your country. This is our country. It was inevitable. It's going to happen eventually. And this is what it looks like when it starts happening. Relatedly, Richard Poe, those of you who get the little ironic joke I did there, you'll appreciate it. He says, just a few short months ago, top-tier influencers weren't talking about the British this way. Something's changed. And here's a clip from Alex Jones. We got to listen to some Alex Jones, guys. This is Alex Jones talking about the remnants of the British Empire formed the heart of the globalist economic and cultural control system that has operated for decades. King Charles' secret proposal to President Trump.
The District of Columbia, D.C., is its own corporation, city-state, and they do pledge our birth certificates into the debt system, and all of that goes on, and then they've now merged all those ledgers globally with all the derivatives, and it's all over leverage, and that system's coming down. So now they need a new system. They thought it would be the globalist British Empire with the EU, with China in control of us. Then China double-crossed them, so that alliance fell apart. And then NATO and the globalists, to stay relevant, started a war with Russia. They've now lost that. They've got all these rebellions and people figuring out they're under unelected EU dictatorship under the commission. And so they see the writing on the wall, and then we override them. They try to kill Trump. We still get him in. They're losing. So they're trying to come in and get a deal with Trump, and they'll stab him in the back. After Trump leaves, they'll just come back. We have to end this global tyrannical system now. Mike in California. Mike, thanks for holding. You're on the air.
Hey, Alex. How's it going?
Good. Go ahead.
I just got to say real quick. Oh, that's bad pause. Alex is looking really good. Really good. I know I've mentioned this before, but it does my heart good to see how well he's doing. See how healthy he looks. I missed a super chat up here. So, Bob, good friend of mine, $5. He says, louder with King Pill, bring back not gay Jared. Well, it's funny when I texted Amy that yesterday, and she asked when I was going to start abusing her. I laughed and I said not gay Cooper. That's going to have to be his name next time he's on here. Melon also says this is the social intelligence part that I cannot pick up. Yeah, that's why. So guys like Asmongold, guys like Crowder, guys like what's his name, Dave Portnoy, Jason Whitlock, Clay Travis, all these sorts of guys, Jesse Kelly. Those guys are in terms of appeal, they have like probably the broadest appeal among your sort of generic harmless normie. They're someone that they're not going to have like a knee-jerk opposition to. They're not just going to immediately oppose anything they say. Oh, radical right-wingers. There's a small segment of the population that has that knee-jerk reaction. Most people are like, if you send them something that Jesse Kelly's saying and they agree with it and it's harmless or whatever, then yeah, they're not going to have some big opinion about Jesse Kelly or whoever else. So a lot of these guys are very good normie bellwethers because when they start talking about something and lending credence to it, they are broadly inoffensive enough and they collectively have such a large audience and they tend to kind of operate along the same wavelength. Once you start seeing one of them start talking about a thing in a certain way, others will start doing the same. These are all like the normie bellwethers. They're the ones who trail behind everything else, and you've got a lot of our guys who are out really carving the path through the jungle, and these people are coming along behind them. So once they start taking up these issues and grappling with them, is like when those guys started talking about wokeness and, talking about like woke athletes and that sort of thing. That was one of the bellwethers for the death of wokeness coming. Because once they get to the point where they're like, you know what, I'm willing to speak out on this, they are speaking for a lot of people. So it's actually a good thing when you see those people who wouldn't naturally be inclined to say your things, when they do start saying your things, that's a canary in the coal mine. That's a signal that they are sensing the direction everything is going, and they have that natural human instinct to want to say the thing that people are going to like to hear them say. So that's it. You don't need them to be super based and radical right away. Maybe they'll get there eventually, or maybe they won't. But they'll serve a purpose for a period of time by normalizing some of these ideas and allowing them to be talked about, which is what starts breaking the spells.
Cool. No, my thing is like I don't think I think he's playing some 4D chess. You know, when I look back at how he was to Queen Elizabeth during his first term, you know, he never bowed, he never did any of the pomp and circumstance that he was supposed to. So I'm kind of feeling like this just, I don't know, it's like a 4D chess move. But what I was wondering is, do you think any of this could be tied to a topic that I'm not too familiar with, but how I've heard that America is a corporation, not necessarily a country, and that based on some of the corporateness, that maybe this may be some type of procedure that he needs to go through to get rid of that. And I just think it'd be a great, thing to, probably go viral, to just, when he's over here, to just, tell him, no, we're not doing any of this, and do it right there in the Oval Office. I just think that would be so cool to be like, nope, we're not doing
Yeah, I mean,
this.
it would take hours to get into all that. There's also a lot of patriot legal legend that exaggerates it or gets it wrong. But yes, the District of Columbia, D.C., is its own corporation, city-state, and they do pledge our birth certificates into the debt system, and all of that goes on. And then they've now merged all those ledgers globally with all the derivatives, and it's all over leverage, and that system's coming down. So now they need a new system. And they thought it would be the globalist British Empire with the EU, with China in control of us. Then China double-crossed them, so that alliance fell apart. And then NATO and the globalists, to stay relevant, started a war with Russia. They've now lost that. They've got all these rebellions and people figuring out they're under unelected EU dictatorship under the commission. And so they see the writing on the wall, and then we override them. They try to kill Trump. We still get him in. They're losing. So they're trying to come in and get a deal with Trump, and they'll stab him in the back. After Trump leaves, they'll just come back. We have to end this global tyrannical system now, and through soft power and through culture and through free market. Freedom needs to be worldwide. Get rid of the tariffs. Trump has to use tariffs up front to get rid of those, to make them drop them. That's all he's calling for. He says no tariffs, but they don't do it. So everybody's calling for what needs to happen. It's already happening, and I see this as them capitulating, but spinning it as if we join them. And if they write a new contract where they're under us and then they follow our values, then that would be different. I'm all for 1776 worldwide, not the British Crown, New World Order worldwide. Does that make sense?
No, totally. Because it's like I saw that one comedian said, he goes, the British Empire didn't die, it just turned into a bank.
Yes.
And I think that's how they've kind of had their stranglehold on us. And I think it would just be great for Trump to just, like, right there when he's here, just to be like, nope, and just tell him what it is.
Yes, sir. Great points. I could talk to you all day, but I got to move because Chase is coming up here in about 15 minutes. Let me just say this before I go to more calls quickly. Great points, callers. We'll do this again tomorrow, but with more detail. Because you understand this, you understand it all. And I've forgotten more than most people know. I'm not trying to be, oh, I'm so smart. I mean, it gives me a headache how much I know. It's always been a bank. Okay? Stock market was invented in England by Gresham. All of it, stocks, all of that comes out of it. Okay? And the black nobility of Italy and their city-states collapsed. They came over, a lot of their smarts. And so there's a lot of history goes into it. But what you have to understand is that at the Battle of Waterloo, was it 18, 14, 18, 15, when they were able to crash the stock market in England by saying that Napoleon had won and beaten Lord Wellington, which they hadn't, Rothschild bought up 99% of the stock market for pennies on the pound, literally, and became the British royal system. And so when we say England created Israel, the Rothschilds did it. So the crown became bankrupted and really under their control at that point. And it really is the Rothschilds. That's mainline history. Most people don't know it.
Here's where all eyes...
What a very fascinating clip. I mean, he's... Oh, yeah, sorry, Bell. Alex has talked about this kind of stuff before, but it's very interesting that he's talking about this particular subject regarding Waterloo when Stormy was just talking about this on something that I listened to just recently. I don't remember if it was an Inquisition or somewhere, but Stormy was just talking about precisely this subject. And the way that Alex was kind of trying to think his way through that made me think that he was recalling something he'd heard just recently and trying to get the points out sort of sporadically. Maybe he was distracted. He's Alex Jones. But I thought that was a very interesting little interaction. And this whole thing with King Charles, his secret proposal to President Trump for the U.S. to join the Commonwealth and all of this. I'm glad that it's a fun thing to talk about, and the whole idea that like America's a corporation and your social security number makes you a member of the corporation, and maritime law and all that sovereign citizen stuff. I think it's kind of interesting. Maybe there's a little something to it, like there was the corporation that was established in 1871 or something along these lines. I've gone down that rabbit hole in the past, and I think there's something to it, but it's also one of those things that if you wanted to change it or make it be not that way or something, it's going to require political power. And if you have that political power, then it kind of doesn't matter. If you have the political power to change a system like that, when you hit one of those once in several generation moments where you have the singular monarchical figure who can break those patterns, well, then it's like, it doesn't really matter what the thing was that came before. You can kind of create anything you want at that point. So yeah, I personally am not super invested in the, this part of the story. The whole DC is a corporation and there's like these secret behind the scenes contracts, and those are actually motivating people in this way or that way or whatever. I don't think the world really operates that way anymore. But it is very good to see, as Richard Poe says, top-tier influencers like Alex Jones who are talking about these things. Glonk says Stormy was talking about this on Astro Flight Simulator, free podcast on Substack. Okay, I couldn't remember if that's where it was. Yeah, go follow Astral on Substack. They do the Inquisition every so often, and those are must-listen conversations. Let me see some of the comments here. Isaac says, I've been watching Jones a lot recently, and I've noticed his theories are less ridiculous these days, which is good. That is good. Oh, yeah, it's Astral Flight Simulation. Okay, so... all right. Let's talk about this. Academic Agent posted this yesterday. He says, my honest feeling is that Trump 2.0 has been an absolute shambles, which is not only massively damaging U.S. credibility, but also making a total mockery of the right more broadly. So, oh no, the right is being made a mockery of. Everything's getting embarrassing. And you could see this coming. You could see that there was ultimately going to be a divide. And I mentioned this kind of in the show yesterday, that there was going to be a divide between the Americans and the Euros. You could smell this sort of thing was starting to cook up. And this is what has happened now. You've got the European, the different representatives of the various European nations who see the world through a European lens, a fundamentally European lens. And then you have Americans. And Americans have European heritage, but we are going through this process of ethnogenesis where America is becoming a race separate from the European race. It's descended from it, but it's reaching a point where the gaps between them are you would expect something like this to happen. Eventually, over enough time, it's been what? 5, I asked Grok this yesterday, it's been 5 to 15 generations. So maybe on average, about 10 generations. The average American today is somewhere between 5 and 15 generations removed from the European heritage. And by European, I mean living in a European country, actually being on that soil. Within another generation or two, you're going to have effectively zero Americans who even know someone who knew someone who was a European ancestor of theirs. This means the European lived experience and the American lived experience are diverging from one another. There's a frickin' ocean between us. Being physically removed from a space like that changes your psychology and ultimately your genetics. You would expect this to eventually happen, that eventually America and Europe are going to drift apart sociologically, politically, and ultimately genetically. Because the longer that Americans are in America, making babies in America, who are then going on to make more babies in America, the more American we are becoming. And being American is different than being European. And that's becoming increasingly the case. And one very big differentiator, I was thinking about this earlier today, one very big differentiator here is cynicism and passivity versus relentless optimism and a predilection for action. Just break shit. All the American mythologies that are actually relatively close to us, the stories are relatively close to us temporally and geographically, are all, it's the action hero. This is stereotypically American. Just go do stuff, blow stuff up, break it, smash it. We're going to go do stuff. Americans exist as a people because we were the Europeans who didn't want to stay in Europe for one reason or another. You had to be wired in a certain way, which creates a selection filter. So the people who came to America, the Europeans who came to America, were a selection of Europeans who were already inclined that way. And then the conquering and civilizing of the continent, which is a process that's still underway, by the way, that itself accentuates those differences. This isn't to say that there aren't optimistic, action-oriented people in Europe, or that there aren't cynical, pessimistic, passive people in the United States. No, actually, there are. There's quite a few. And it just so happens that the people who are wired that way in the U.S. are much more like the Europeans. Both of these things can be true. If you're a black pillar, you are an American who is holding this European sort of construct in your head. European nations have lots of things to be cynical and doomed out about. I sympathize with them. I can understand why they would be as I don't know, given over to hopelessness, given the very real circumstances on the ground there. But America is a different place, with a different people, a different set of values, a different set of priorities, a different posture with respect to the world. We are not Europeans, and we're not embarrassed of that fact. We have love for Europe in its place. Europe was once the home of our people. That makes it special. But it also doesn't make us not Americans. There's a reason that the European mind cannot comprehend this is a meme. It wouldn't be a meme if what I'm saying wasn't true. So my default position here is that going forward, we should expect deeper and deeper divides to form between so-called American right-wingers and European right-wingers. And that's not necessarily bad or wrong or whatever. It's kind of a going your own way. I think a similar thing is going to increasingly begin developing between Americans, like Southwest Americans and Southeast Americans, and Midwest Americans and Northeast Americans. A lot of these things have already existed. There's plenty of reasons for those rifts to exist. They have existed for a long time, and I think that they're going to get accentuated because I think we're going to get a more localist focus just naturally. So I don't begrudge the Europeans their perspectives. I think there's a reason they have them. And that's fine. They can have them and they can think whatever they want. I, as an American, could not give two flying fucks what a European person thinks about the presidential administration. I do not care. Not one iota. I don't care what they think of American culture or American food or American products. I do not care one bit what they think of any of those things. I don't need to. This is what I voted for. I voted to not have to care about what Europeans think or say. Not because I'm hostile to them, but because my country has been being poisoned by the worst parts of their countries. All of these political schools of thought, the worst peccadillos and weird little idiosyncrasies of our legal culture, our intelligence services, all of these things are all the parts of them that are rotting are the ones that we inherited from our European ancestors. They've stayed past their expiration date. And we are going to build distinctly, authentically American versions of them that are going to serve Americans first and foremost. And I don't want them to be antagonistic or antithetical to our European brothers and sisters. I'd love to live at peace together. And just understand, you guys you're going to be your thing and we're going to be our thing, and we can cooperate on this thing or that thing, and we should have good trade relationships. But ultimately, that's going to be up to you guys. You guys are going to have to get your shit together. And you're going to have to lose this mentality that because you're Europeans, somehow we should take you more seriously. Because you bring the European perspective, the international perspective to bear. I do not care about the international perspective. I'm an American. I don't have to. I care about the American perspective. This is what it is to be an American. Because America is not just some other country. America is a distinct people in a distinct place with distinct characteristics. And one of those characteristics that is relatively unique to America is I do not have to care what non-Americans think about America. Whether you like it, whether you hate it, whether you want to be here, whether you don't want to be here, I don't have to care about it. I want to have good relations with Europeans. I have lots of Europeans that I am great friends with. I value European culture, the European heritage, the stories. I've been to Europe, and there's a distinct feel that you get there. This is ancient land. In a different way than the ancient land feel of the United States. I grew up in the Pacific Northwest. There are very weird spirits in the Pacific Northwest, very deep and ancient. There's great lore. But in Europe, it's different. You can feel the spirit in the air. You can go see buildings that are 1,000 years old. That doesn't exist in the United States. That's really cool. I think that should be preserved. But you guys are going to have to preserve it. We've got to sort our shit out, which means we need to detach ourselves from you. We need to disentangle ourselves, disentangle our interests. This is going to be better for both of us. This is what Vagrant says. He says, this type of blackpilling is comically absurd because it's literally only been 2 months. But it's clear that the European mind literally cannot comprehend Trump. They don't even know what he represents. It's completely alien to them. Trump isn't going to fix everything. We know that the system isn't capable of true reform in its current construction. But he is the catalyst that triggers our ability to restore our people's sovereignty via the revelation of the system's flaws and corruption. Credibility within the global leftist regime system is not a good thing. Damaging that credibility, which is in reality just a measure of loyalty to leftist causes, is actually a great measure of his success so far, because it means he is dismantling the corrupt leftist patronage networks, deep state, and other unaccountable systems that have kept the American people in chains for the last half-century, showing the masses why the system is so deeply broken. The more credibility he loses with this system, the better. Oh no! A bunch of evil politicians who want to kill us don't like that we voted for someone who will protect us from them. Now we've lost credibility with them. We don't care. I know Europe is more deeply propagandized than we are, especially when it comes to matters of reputation within the system, which has protected their pension society for so long. But if you can't see this for the success it's been so far, then you're not going to make it. Trump is the antithesis of credibility within an evil system which seeks our utter extinction. And that's exactly why we need him. And then this from Dissident Soaps. He says, having spoken to a lot of Anglo foreigners over the past week, I can say they just don't get it. Nothing Trump can do will justify his lack of respectability to them, and their institutions are so old that they can't imagine we intentionally elected a guy to smash ours. Yes. We specifically want him to do these things. It is good that he does these things. The fact that he is losing credibility, the fact that everyone is so spazzed out about him internationally is precisely what we voted for. I voted so that things would happen that I knew would make the international community lose their shit. And just because we happen to be right-wing or something online doesn't mean we automatically have some sort of an affiliation where we have to publicly, we have to fall in line and you guys are being absurd and this is... that's nice. I don't owe credibility or whatever to you. I don't care. The purpose of this administration is not to be credible to the people who think they're incredible. The purpose of this administration is to break things. It's to break things that need to be broken. And then to whatever extent is possible, to begin the process or at least give us openings to begin building the new things that will go there. We don't expect perfection. We don't expect a Deus Ex Machina that comes in and just magically snaps his fingers and all is well again. No, this is going to be a long process. But we need a demolition ball, a wrecking ball to come swinging through and obliterate some shit. And I want to be pandered to. I want my governing institutions to pander to me. To stop pandering to the people who want to determine whether or not something is credible. Oh, this is incredible. This is not credible. No, incredible things are happening. That's the point. These are incredible things. That's not credible. Yes, that's the point. It's not credible. That's what I voted for. $5 super chat from Rathaglican. to round us off for the evening. He says, the European fetish in the U.S. right is so bad I had an American tell me that we didn't have any great authors and poets compared to Europe. Insanity. Yeah, like this. I'm sure we're going to have more conversations along these lines. But the European mind is perhaps the least equipped to understand the American mind. And for a little while, there's been kind of this, like, you know, we have this little circle of radical right wingers on the internet who we get together in our little circles and anonymously chat with each other, and it's kind of grown, and we have this camaraderie. Oh, we're the ones who say the things you're not allowed to, and all of our institutions are all totally corrupted, and there's no opposition. And well, now things are happening in the United States. Things are happening in the United States that are not happening in Europe. Not anywhere close to the same degree. And the more that the things happen in the United States, the more they're going to happen in Europe. But the extent to which European quote-unquote right-wingers object to these things happening in the United States, the more they are casting a vote, metaphorically, for the status quo in Europe. Europe is never going to be American. But it's only by America breaking the chains of credibility and opening up the landscape of possibility that Europeans are going to be able to do the same thing. But that's going to require Europeans developing some self-awareness. I think Americans are not self-aware. They're like, oh, how could you enjoy that? It's so cringy. That's just cringe. You're so cringe. My face is melting from the cringe. I can't believe you would get excited about the vice president shooting. Don't you know it's fake? Don't you know it's a photo op? Don't you know they're just trying to pander to you? Of course we do. That's the point. We have a vice president who is pandering to us. That means something. And if he's pandering to us, it should not be attractive to you because you are not us. If a politician was pandering to you, it would look different, and it would not be attractive to us because we are not you. Americans like what Trump is doing because we're Americans and because he is an American, and he is going about this as an American. America first was not just rhetoric. This is the best, most effective political organization that any of us have seen anywhere near our lifetimes. Does it fit the perfect script that the most based Anon autist compiled together when he was writing his movie about magic-based world where every magical based thing happens in exactly the way we would dream of? Of course not. We don't live in fantasy land. But that doesn't mean we don't see the trajectory. And every single day, we get reminders, we get awarded the got what I voted again, got what I voted for again ribbons. We get those little ribbons every single day. And I pray that starts happening in the European nations. I want my Euro bros to get their got what I voted for again awards. Maybe we'll be able to help you. Once we get our shit sorted out, maybe we'll be freed up and we can come help you. But you're going to have to recognize that you need help. And that you're not going to get that help by looking down your nose at us and somehow thinking that because we came from you, we owe you something. No, America doesn't need to humble itself to the standards of the Europeans. Europeans need to recognize that in the modern world, they play second fiddle to the United States. That's just how it is, and it's not going to change. So as the United States changes, y'all got to change as well. Hate to break it to you. This isn't me advocating for that reality. I'll do that next. This is me declaring that reality, recognizing that reality to be so. And as an American, I like that reality. That reality works very well for me. It feeds right into my American priors. It's very convenient. The Eurobros got to develop some self-awareness here. One more super chat. Another one from Lethaglican. He says, I think it comes from being Wignats and being unable to appreciate anything besides what is an older form of white person instead of loving their own. Yeah, there's that's getting into territory that is going to take a lot longer, and I need to prepare those remarks a little bit better. I have a thesis that I'm working on that I need to get some people to talk to and sort of flesh out a little bit more. But I don't think it's proper to consider America an Anglo nation. I think it's much more Latin in spirit. I think we have an Anglo legal system and we have a lot of Anglo influence, but ultimately, I think as America, the American ethnogenesis continues, it's going to become more and more evident that America is fundamentally a Latin country. I'll elaborate on that more later. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for showing up. We got 105 still watching and 78 likes. So do me a favor, hit that like button, follow the channel. Make sure you're subscribed, turn on the notification bell, follow me on Twitter at RealKingPilled. I appreciate all the super chats today, guys. Thank you for your generosity. To those of you who have hit the Cash App and the Buy Me a Coffee in the last few days, I see you. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for your support. Again, those links are in the description. Cash App, Buy Me a Coffee. You can also go subscribe to the King Pilled Substack, where I'll be posting this episode, along with the links of everything that I went through today if you want to go peruse those yourselves. kingpilled.substack.com or kingpilled on Substack. It's free to subscribe to. There is a paid option if you want to support the show that way. Very much appreciated to those of you who have done that. It humbles me that I'm allowed to do this because of the support of you guys. And then last but not least, go join the King Pilled Discord, kingpilled.com. We may watch some more of The Apprentice this weekend, or there's the possibility. We've been doing a little bit of discussing in the Discord, and someone threw out the idea of watching the extended version of Watchmen. So that may be what we wind up doing this Friday night. So if you want to come join us for that, go to kingpilled.com, join the King Pilled Discord, become one of the elite, one of the few. And for now, I leave you with Hulk.
When they took a shot at my hero and they tried to kill the next president of the United States, enough was enough. And I said, let Trumpomania run wild, brother. Let Trumpomania rule again. Let Trumpomania make America